I'm somewhere different. You haven't gotten to see the reveal of this spectacular room. I still need like a little plant, I think, here. But hi, book friends, and welcome to my new library. Why are you interrupting me? Like, this is the study, this is the library, this is that, right? And now we're gonna talk about some books. I have a confession to make. I have been a victim of Booktok. I have been tricked. I have been bamboozled. I have been led down the dark road of overly simplistic plots, bad dialogue that no real person would ever say, zero world building, and it's all covered over with this sheen of spicy scenes and endearing side characters. So I put a stop to it, and I said, never again. But then, a year later, I did it again. I got pulled into the excitement around the Booktok hype machine. The books just look so exciting and the people are so excited about them. But this time I came prepared. I told myself I was going to find the great Booktok books because I know that they're out there. Now, did I find what I was looking for? Si, comme ça. That's what we're gonna have to find out today. I'm not saying that to waste your time. I'm saying that we did get to where we wanted to go, but it was a bit of a journey. And even though I knew what I was looking for, there were some things that I learned along the way about how to find the great Booktok books. One, look for reviewers who read widely. Oversaturation of one genre is an immediate red flag. There is no one genre that has all great books. People who love thrillers are going to be reading non-thrilling thrillers at least part of the time. So I would say you can be primarily a thing. I would say I'm probably mostly a fantasy girly, but I love a romance, but I love a lit fic, but I love a thriller and a spooky book every once in a while. Two, stay away from the hypers of every single new release. Again, it's the law of averages. You are going to get beaten every time. Every new book cannot be the most exciting thing ever. Third, and I think most important, it's keep looking, because eventually you're gonna find your people and they're gonna have the hidden gems that you were looking for that you didn't even know were out there. It's how I found one of the best books I've read all year, but that's coming up later. So on to our journey. And we are going to find out if I was tricked by Booktok again. Because I gotta tell you, it started out bumpy and I almost jumped ship. The first book I read on this TikTok renaissance was A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. I absolutely love the cover. There is something very pleasing about the pages. It's a short in stature hardcover, and something about that shape is very pleasing to me. So this was added to my stack of books that I said I was going to take this second risk on. The red flags that came up that immediately worried me because they reminded me of my first go round trying out Booktok books were very bumpy dialogue and overly aggressive characters. They're trying to either do enemies to lovers too hard, or they're just, I've said this before, at the beginning of your writing journey, dialogue is very difficult. And it can be a tell of somebody who's a newer writer and somebody who's not. People will want to show a character who is frustrated or scared or intimidated through dialogue, and they do it in a way that turns out very aggressive, very cheesy, cackly villain when it's supposed to be your hero or heroine. A Study in Drowning is a fantasy. I guess some people might call it a romantasy. It's based in a world that does not exist, but it's definitely speaking to some of our real world issues of race and class and people being treated differently depending on where they're from. There's a lot of misogyny in this world. Our female main character opens a story by being at a university, and she's in an architectural college, which is the highest college that women can go into. The one higher or more prestigious college than that is the literature college, which it's, definitely a reader's fantasy, right? And you're in a world where the most prestigious thing you can study is literature. But the literature college is men only, and a lot of her ambivalence that you're going to see in her frustrations and the clunkiness about how she kind of addresses the world comes from her not feeling like it's it's fair that she can't go be in this college since she is overly qualified. She knows all the lore. She is a literature junkie. And there are a lot of much less deserving men than her that are given the opportunity. The synopsis that I wrote is that it's a young woman in a land inhabited by a populace that has turned the literary work of one man into religious dogma. She's trying to make it through her university architecture courses while recovering from a scandal with a male professor and avoid the mistreatment of her mostly male fellow classmates. She uses her status as an architecture student to compete for a once-in-a-lifetime chance to work on the home of her hero, Emrys Murden, who is the said literature figure who created the work that has been turned into religious dogma. What saved the story for me is that it was super atmospheric. Like, it was very creepy. It was very old world like. The base of the literature work that is in here is very like fairy tale-ish pirate, evil pirate adventure. I wanted to be in this world. I wanted this world to be interesting. But the continuous clunkiness with the characters' dialogue, and then eventually the resolution, again, it's another thing that you see in some of these more simplistic stories, is a resolution that came after an entire adventure and story with the characters that was over in a few pages, and it was very anticlimactic. The other thing about the female main character is that she swings from being absolutely terrified of everything, and this is part of the revelation that the story is trying to give to the reader as it goes along, but it's so overblown. So she's either extremely scared to the point where she can barely move, or she's attacking the male main character for things that he's not even saying or doing. There is a follow-up to this book called A Theory of Dreaming, and I do not think I'm going to read it. So at that point, I could have just said, I don't think this is working out, guys, and I don't know if I want to do this to myself again, and it might have been a mistake. Because in reality, a lot of the Booktok books that I read last go round weren't like horrendous. It was just, there were obvious problems, and I kept encountering the same thing, and I'm pushing through this whole story, and for what? And for why? But I said, I gave myself a task. I gave myself numerous stories, and I was going to keep going. So the next stop on our journey was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, and this one got appreciably better very fast. This one hits you in the face in the first chapter on how the story starts. It is wild. My synopses. 3 young girls, one revealed to be Fae, watched their mother and father be murdered in front of them after a Fae man, who is eventually revealed as their mother's true husband and oldest sister's father, and also the murderer in question, takes them all back to the High Court of Fairy. Here, the Fae are extremely cruel, and figuring out how to survive and thrive is the rest of the tale. Immediate pluses where I really love the female main character. The pacing was great from the very beginning, and the writing was much better. Was it perfection? No, but it was much, much better. And what I just told you is very wild, but that's the first chapter. That's not even the story. The story gets more fantastical. You come into their world of Fae, which, even though they don't take you to a lot of places in the fairy kingdom, it is a very interesting place, and it seems very mysterious, and everything's extremely beautiful, and most of it is very harmful. So it's like dangers lurking around every corner. The thing that worried me about this one, the red flag that came up with this one, is that it felt like a reductive story that was trying to seem more complex. Like she was trying to grow this into something significant. Like it was a story that had something to say outside of it just being a fairy story. I think that the people who use fantasy as a way to say important things about the world or society or life or what they've experienced are fantastic for doing that. And some of those stories are my favorite that I've ever read. But if you have a well-written world that's exciting enough and different enough and interesting enough, I don't think you have to do that with a fantasy story. It can just be a fantasy. It can just be something fantastical and beautiful and an escape. So basically, I feel like either do that well or don't. It didn't ruin the book for me. I am going to read the second one. There was a bit of the overly aggressive, but it came from the male main character, and all of the fairies are very aggressive, and I guess that's what she was trying to do. There are times where they're nice in a way that doesn't tally with that aggression. It's like if you're gonna be interview with a vampire, do that kind of heartless, careless thing, right? Don't dance in that world and then have like times where they're actually vulnerable and more complex. So we went from I was worried and we might need to turn back to okay, it's getting better. Let's see. And then this third one, I don't know if it got better than the second one, but I loved the characters immediately and so much more. And that was Rachel Gillig's The Night and the Moth. Now, this one is, I think, the newest of the Booktok books that I read. It had just come out when I got it. And so while this one has another book coming, I have to wait for this one. The others so far, all of the others, the books are already out. And so while I feel like this is I'm going to read the next one, this is a good one, I don't know if the waiting is going to change my opinion because there were problems with this story too. Okay, so The Night and the Moth is based on Sybil, who's our female main character, is a kind of priestess of a divine cathedral where she and her fellow diviners drown in holy waters so as to tell people their futures by reading the signs they see in their drowning. And the first sentence of my review of this is I love every single character, especially the gargoyle. The gargoyle. All I have to tell you is the gargoyle. Like, I know that it seems like I break down the story in my little synopsis, but there's so much that happens. Like this, what I just gave you was the very beginning of the book, and then the adventures the rest of the book. And the gargoyle is just something that you have to read. I can't even give you a rendering that would do it justice. He's just so well written. He's such a great side character. He says all of the things that need to be said, and he's so funny. In general, I had such a good time with this one. It was bumpy, but it was a good time. We had, again, the overly aggressive character. It's got to be somebody always. It is the knight in this one. And he's supposed to be like off-putting and he's rude, and the diviners come from a world where they are considered holy and they are paid so much respect. And the interesting juxtaposition that the author does with this is that while they're considered holy, they were just girls who are raunchy, who are funny, who are living this experience. They believe in it. They feel like they're holy, but they are also allowed a lack of modesty, and they're allowed to carouse in a way that our world doesn't usually find appropriate for religious figures. And so I love that. I love that you create a fantasy world and you're saying things maybe about our world, but it's fantasy. Like, you can actually turn it on its head. You can do whatever you want with it and it can work and it be interesting and exciting. Like with A Study in Drowning, this is a whole different world. And if you want to speak to misogyny, I get it. But if it's a whole world where you get to decide that the most amazing thing to study is literature, why are we keeping women out of the literature college, right? Like, let's just go a little further. And so I like this idea of like wild religious girls living on this compound. Other thing that made this one just an overall good time, which I also like the cover. All of these were quick reads except for the last one. But this was another one that was very vibey. It was very mysterious. It hooked you into that mystery from the beginning. You could feel it and it added so much to the story. Even when it did get bumpy, it was still a vibe. The thing about this one that made me feel like I still hadn't tapped into the great book that I was looking for in Booktok was that it had the huge fall at the end. The quest they were on, or each step of the quest, was resolved in a way that was overly simplistic. There was more lore to the actual challenge of the resolution. There's so much that could have been done with the actual base of the story. And I keep saying this same thing, and I just want to make sure that you guys understand what I mean by it. So if I have read 297 pages of your trials and your tribulations, like think of Lord of the Rings, right? Like we're on our way to Mordor and we're trying to get the ring and you know, there's evildoers that are trying to stop us everywhere, and we're having to ask armies to help us, and we're having to overcome kings and queens and people who've been in power for 300 years. All of these big things we're getting to, and you get to the final level. You get to the King Koopa, right? The final enemy to defeat. And when it's time to defeat him, punch him in the nose, trip him, and then stab him in the chest. Story over. Story over. You won. Why hasn't anybody beat this guy before now? I'm so confused. Why did we go all this way and get here for it to just be wrapped up this easily? No comprendo. But it is a tell, again, of a more simplistically written story. The likelihood that an overly aggressive dialogue speaker is going to be paired with the end of a journey that resolves itself too quickly is, I don't know, the percentage has to be, the correlation between those two has to be like 96%. But all of the characters were so great. Even the knight, there are times where that clunky dialogue makes somebody absolutely irredeemable and you just hate them and you can't stand it. That was not the case here because we got over that in certain places. So I am going to read the second one to this one too. Okay, so I got to this place where I said, it's been a road, I'm on a journey, and I read 4 books. And the last book was over 800 pages. And I'm like, is it worth it to keep going? And it felt like it was, because where we ended up at that point was A Study in Drowning was 3.5 pandas. We had The Cruel Prince Get Better at 3.75 pandas. We had The Knight and the Moth keep that energy at 3.75. So I said, maybe this last one is the one. And it was. And it was, guys. This was the one that I had been waiting for down this long, long road. 85 years I've waited to tell this tale. You get it? I think it was 85 years. The Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. I had never heard of Robin Hobb. And getting to this book is what made me realize that third tip that I gave you guys in the beginning. When you're looking for great books in Booktok, you have to find your people. You have to find your people. This person's been writing for like 30 years and I love fantasy and I had never heard of them. But there are authors who are out there who, hello, even if you read as much as I do, you hadn't heard of them. Grady Hendrix is another one. I'm starting to wonder if I need to read some of his books. If he is a yes, put it down in the comments. So Robin Hobb is a prolific fantasy writer. She has multiple series that feed into each other. I think this is the second group of the series, but the place on Booktok where I found this, which was Chris and Mad's Booktok channel, who are sisters who talk about books. One of the sisters said this is her favorite, I think, of all of Robin Hobb's books, and she loves Robin Hobb. So I said, if I'm going to go this crazy, if I'm going to go 800 pages, then I am going to pick the one that's supposedly the best. And it was not disappointing. The synopsis. The Vestrit family owns a live ship, and our story opens on the birth of the ship, Vivacia, upon the death of the third family member to captain her. She holds the memories of all 3 family captains prior and speaks and gestures through the figurehead of the ship, even though the entire ship is her. Bend the story jumping POVs, very Game of Thrones-esque, but so far they haven't used that as a way to have cataclysmic things happen to particular characters. Like if you read Game of Thrones, he uses that technique to kill people and have like wild things happen that you didn't expect. And I really wish somebody would use it in that way too, because I mean, he's a master at it. George R.R. Martin is, and I'm still waiting for the last books. We're digressing. We're jumping POVs from Althea Vestrit, who should have been the next in line to inherit the ship, to an unscrupulous pirate captain, to a reluctant next of kin who does inherit the ship, to a faithful shipmate, and then to a nest of sea snakes that allude to a mysterious tie between them and the live ship. It's in a completely fantasy world. Some of the symbolism is family, misogyny, adventure, outside colonizers, government, tribal traditions, magic, religion as faith versus religion as an arm of empire. Ooh, we got dark real fast. This is one of those fantasy stories that says things about the real world, but doesn't so much use the fantasy world as a way to turn things on its head. It's very Game of Thrones too, in that, right? Like medieval world, people in chainmail, and so there's like incest and rape and subjugation of women. And so in this one, it's ancient world where the women have varying degrees of rights, and societally they're trying to be doing well enough. They've come out of a time where they were kind of building a society, and in that situation everybody has to work, and now they're at a prosperous level, and the way to show their prosperity is that you're pulling women back from having control and agency inside of day-to-day things that we need to move society forward. This was a 4.5 read. 4.5 panda read. I'm going to read every single book in this, I think, trilogy. And if they're all like this, I'm going to have to read like the 5,000 books that Robin Hobb has written. I have been looking for an author who has a lot of works that I could love over time, because it has happened to me several times with Diana Gabaldon, with She Who Must Not Be Named. And I just am so happy that I found this through Booktok. And FYI, this size was a massive risk, because in Booktok land, big does not always mean better. And honestly, in book land, that is also true. Dune Messiah. Am I right? Anyways, so I hit the jackpot and it was worth it. This set of books was worth every single one. Oh, it has a blurb from hilarious. It has a blurb from George Martin on the cover. Anyways, only way I could love this book more, what would have made it perfect, is if I loved the individual characters more. I feel like she's balancing them, and I don't know if I want that. Also feel like, I was gonna say none of the POVs are people I hate, but the pirate's a pretty bad guy. So I don't know. Let's see how the next ones go, but I'm excited. So subscribe because we found each other and you're in the right place. So at the end of all this, I was left asking myself, is Booktok getting better, or am I just getting better at finding what it is that speaks to me as a reader at the place and time that I am on my reading journey? And I feel like it's the second one. I'm just getting better at being more selective. When I found Booktok, it was so exciting because I've lived a life in, the normal world where there's so few people who love reading. And I found this entire online community where there's so many people who love reading and they're so excited about it. And they want to tell you about all of these books that bring them joy. And I just fed into that excitement, like, oh, that sounds amazing. I need that one. I need that one. I need that one. And then the letdown when I started reading them felt like betrayal. But it wasn't Booktok's fault. It was my fault because I don't take reading recommendations from just anybody in the real world. I need to know what you like. I need to know what your thoughts are on what you like. I just did not do my research, guys. I had to be a little less excited and a little bit more picky. I had to fix my picker, and I did. And so I'm excited now to see what other treasures I find in Booktok land. It is a hunt. It is not an extravaganza, right? We are into the fall season in Florida now, as you can tell by the fact that the lighting completely changed because there is a storm. That's how our fall season starts, not with changing crisp leaves. It is with storming. And what does that mean? It means we're in September and October. And that means it is Hispanic Heritage Month. And the next video is going to be the books that I read for that month. De mi gente. And I'm so excited about it because as a group, like all of the books together are the best group of books that I've read all year long and maybe that I've read since I've been doing this channel. So you've got to come back for that one, and you've got to come back for the new setup, and you've just got to come back because you enjoy talking to me about books. You found your people. See, I had to find my people. You found your people, and I'm going to tell you about all of these treasures that I find, and we're just going to go on an adventure together, and hopefully some of it you haven't heard of, and I get to do for you what some cool people on the internet have done for me. Till the next time, book friends. Bye.